Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the regular board meeting to order at 3:30. And we're going to go ahead and start off with the land acknowledgement, which I will do. Okay, welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of the Nitsitsi, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, the Blackfoot people, within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. As we just had our organizational meeting and ditto Canada, we will skip A2 at this time and move forward to the consent agenda. So we have, Trustee Yagos.
I would like to do two things for the consent agenda. First of all, I'd like to pull the superintendent's report so that there's a discussion on it. And secondly, I would like to move...
Trustee Yagos, I'm just going to get the motion on the floor and then...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'll just get the motion on the floor. So, yeah, and then you can pull things out and put them in. So we are moving to B1, approval of the minutes, business arising from the minutes, board annual work list 2021-22, superintendent monthly report, and the associate superintendent. So the recommendation is that the October 26, 2021 consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion? So Trustee Yagos, please go ahead.
Okay, and I first of all like to pull the superintendent's report. Got some questions on that. And I'd also like to add F4 and F5 to the consent agenda because they're just things that are that's the board annual work list and the substantive motions, and then we could approve them because everybody should have read them rather than going through them individually, and move those so that we could approve it with the consent agenda.
Thank you so much, Trustee Yagos. Any questions or conversation about that? Perfect. So then we will vote. All in favor? Perfect, thank you. And we will move the superintendent report to, we'll pull it and put it as E3, not action items. Yeah, so we'll put it in the information section. We will move it as what will now be F7. Is that okay? Yeah, F7. Thank you. Thank you for that, Trustee Yagos. Okay, so we'll move forward to emergent changes to the agenda. Section C, the recommendation that the October 26, 2021 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Would someone like to make that motion? Yeah.
I'd like to make an amendment.
We need the motion on the floor first. So would you like to make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, and go ahead and speak to it. Thank you, Trustee Long. What item do you want to add?
Oh, there it is. All right.
Yep.
Recommendation. A recommendation be that the Board of Trustees create an additional 2 positions, 1 trustee from Ward 1 and 1 trustee from Ward 3, to sit on the Community as a Classroom, School as a Base Camp Ad Hoc Committee.
Thank you for that, Trustee Long. So we will add that after our professional learning there as E4. Any other conversation? Trustee Toon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to add 2 additional items as well. The recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the school assignments as follows, and we would assign our schools in our action items at the end of the list, and then an additional one would be that the board approves appointing, not appointing, supporting trustees in running for ASBA positions as follows. And that we have the discussion after about positions that board members would like to put their names forward for the one board, one vote.
Yeah, thank you for that, Trustee Toon. So is the board in favor of this? Trustee Yagos?
I really didn't hear Trustee Toon.
Okay, so he's asking for E5 agenda to be added. We'd like to approve school assignments today. And E6, discussion on ASBA positions that board members would like to run for and approve them as follows. Is that perfect? Any other discussion about that? Okay, so the board's okay with that? Perfect. So all in favor of the recommendation that the October 26, 2021 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as amended? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. That was made by Mr. Long. D, conflict of interest. The recommendation that the Board of Trustees declare if they have any conflict of interest related to agenda items from the October 26, 2021 board meeting, and if so, please declare them. Any conflicts of interest at this time? Perfect, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move right into our action items then. We're moving to E1, locally developed course renewals by Mr. Chad Kuzak. The approval from the board is required for the superintendent's office to move ahead with renewal of the use of expired or acquired locally developed courses. Chad Kuzak, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Innovation, will review this information. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees confirm for Alberta Ed for the 2021-2022 and the 2022-2023 school year that its delegation of authority to the superintendent under Board Policy 12 and Section 52 of the Education Act applies to the approval of locally developed courses submitted to Alberta Education. Is there someone that would be willing to make this motion? Okay, that's Trustee Yagos. Trustee Yagos, did you want to speak to that or turn it over to?
I'll just like to turn it over.
Okay, it's time for a review real quick. So basically this year, 21-22, we're looking at aviation, the whole package, 15, 25, and 35. And then navigational aids, 15, 25, and 35. This is for our Flight Academy in Willow Creek, and so we'll be leveraging those courses. Competencies in math, 15-3 and 15-4. This is for our whole division as our work with math and numeracy. Creative writing and publishing. This is going to be 15, 25, and 35 as well. This is Matthew Holland requested that one. Developing personal integrity, 15, 25, and 35. This is ours. This is FACES, in which we just got approved for. So for another 3 years. Film, media, arts, 15, 25, and 35. This is at JT Foster in Livingston. And forensic science at 15, 35, or sorry, 25 and 35. That's at Livingston, FU Walsh and WCCHS in Livingston. Instrumental jazz, 15, 25, and 35. This is at JT Foster. This has been ongoing for a number of years, and they use that course. Learning strategies, 15, 25, and 35. This is at the bulk of our high schools. They're all leveraging those courses right there. And leather technologies, this is one of ours as well. 15, 25, and 35. This is at FP Walsh. And then abnormal psychology. This will be used at Livingston. And then stained glass, 15, 25, and 35 will be leveraged at JT Foster. And traditional land-based learning, 25 and 35, will be offered across the division. So that's a review of all our LDCOM courses. And I wish I was in school now with those wonderful opportunities. So that's us.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? Okay.
Trustee Hodges?
I just have a comment. I want to do stained glass. I'm super excited to hear about all these coming forth to the board, and I think it's great that our schools can and have their individuality and present courses that they'd like to be able to offer. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
pace is exciting, sorry.
Thank you so much for that, Trustee Hodges. It is really exciting and to hear, aviation and our ski, there's so many wonderful things and we appreciate that. So we still have the motion on the floor. The motion is that the Board of Trustees confirm for Alberta Ed for the 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023 school years that its delegation of the authority to the superintendent under Board Policy 12 and Section 52 of the Education Act applies to the approval of locally developed courses submitted to Alberta Ed. This was moved by Trustee Yagos. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask all in favor. Carried. Thank you very much. We're going to move to the Audit Committee now. In response to the notice of motion that Trustee Toon brought forward at the September 21st, 2021 board meeting, with the current composition and the number of trustees, the majority of the board now sits on the Audit Committee. With this being an external committee including public members, votes occur to come to a consensus on what to bring as a recommendation to the board. To eliminate this from happening, the board should remove the chair as a member of the committee and leave the membership at 3 trustees. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve removing the ability of the board chair to act as an ex officio member of the Audit Committee and direct the Policy Committee to make the appropriate changes to Board Policy 9. Can I get someone to make that motion? Yeah. So that's Trustee Stangowitt. And did you want to speak to that? No? Nope, that's totally fine. So is there any questions or conversations around this motion? Trustee Yagos?
I just want to thank Trustee Toon for leaving it up to the Policy Committee to make the changes without him doing a written recommendation. So thank you, Trustee Toon.
Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
I rely on experts, and I know our policy committee is more than capable of completing the work.
Thank you so much. So if there's no further questions, I'll see all in favor. Perfect. Okay. Moving on to professional learning. Time will be provided for any trustees to discuss, report, or seek approval of the board for professional learning events. Is there anyone at this time? The recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the following trustees to attend the following professional development. Is there anyone seeking any at this time? Okay, so then we do not need to make a recommendation. We will move on to E4, which is emergent motion brought forward by,
Madam
Trustee
Chair,
Toon?
I'd make a recommendation going forward that professional learning approval, because we've talked about it before previously, that you need to bring forward the item before the board meeting, and we discuss it in the committee of the whole. If somebody has questions about PD, that we could make the professional learning item as a standing item on our consent agenda. That way it doesn't need to be brought up and read out, especially in this case scenario when there is no one seeking it, just to help speed up the meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So Trustee Toon would like to make the recommendation that we move our professional learning to our consent agenda, and then if you want to discuss or ask for approval, you would ask for it to be pulled out from the consent agenda. Is that a recommendation or okay? Perfect. So we don't need to vote on that? Yeah. Does the board feel comfortable with that? A consensus? Yeah, all in favor? All in secret favor? It's not a motion, it's just a recommendation. So, yeah, yeah, is there anyone who would be opposed to putting it into the consent agenda? No? Okay. Can you make a note of that, Greg? Okay, so we are going to move on. Thank you for that, Trustee Toon. We're going to move on to E4, emergent motion brought forward from Trustee Long. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees create an additional 2 positions, 1 trustee from Ward 1 and 1 trustee from Ward 3, to sit on the committee as a classroom school as base camp ad hoc committee. Can I get someone to make that motion? Okay, that's Trustee Stangowitt. And would you like to speak to it? Okay, then we'll have Trustee Long, would you like to speak to it?
Yes.
Thank you.
This initiative has been in the Crow's Nest Pass for probably the last 3 years. And the idea is to get our students more involved in the community, whether it be community services, whether it be businesses, clubs, organizations, municipal council, boards, so on and so forth. Get our students out in the community much more involved than they are now. And also to get the community much more involved in the school. In other words, our students are out in the community and the community is involved in what's happening at the school. The two sides organizing things specifically for the benefit of the students and the people that live in the community. At this time, we have one trustee that sits on this initiative from Ward 2. I think it would be to the benefit of the Livingston Range School Division to have a trustee from each ward be involved in this initiative. And my hopes would be that it would expand into all of the communities in the Livingston Range School Division.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Do we have any discussion around this item? Oh, thank you, Trustee Toon and Trustee Long. Trustee Yagos.
Yes, I would like at this point, maybe for the next board meeting, to have more detail on this initiative so that there's a better understanding of really what it is, because we really haven't had any, we've had talks about it, but it hasn't been any presentations on it at the board per se. So John Taylor being one of the people who brought this as an initiative, and I gather Trustee Long has been involved with it for a lot more. So, but the other thing with it is that there has to be a start date and an end date to an ad hoc committee. So Trustee Long, seeing you brought this up, I want to know this, we should know the start date and the end date.
Thank you, Trustee Yagos. So Trustee Yagos is proposing that we table this until a board meeting when we can receive a presentation on it. Trustee Long, okay.
I'll respond in two parts. First of all, I've done at least 3 reports, presentations to the board about this initiative, more than that, starting 3 years ago. John Taylor has been here and done a presentation to the board. Our administration from ISS has been here and laid out the whole map on the floor for the whole community and all 3 schools, and we all took a look at that. And you and I have been through it at the schools for parent council, where it was put up on the blackboard for us by administration at all 3 schools. So we have had a lot of input into it. The other question about a start and an end date, I could set a start date as of tomorrow, but there isn't any end date. Even though it's ad hoc, the end date would be when central office and administration and teachers said, this is perfect, it couldn't get any better.
Thank you, Trustee Long. Trustee Hodges?
Thank you. Although I feel this is a great ad hoc committee to be part of, and I appreciate you wanting to open it up to Ward 1 and Ward 3. I just want to caution us as we move forward that when we're hoping to encourage the rest of the school division to be part of this, we need to be careful when what we're asking our schools to do. All our schools have very different dynamics to them, and so although we feel that this is something that's amazing and great and it works really well in the Crow's Nest Pass, it potentially might not work as great throughout the whole division. So I appreciate the fact of being able to gather information and work with it, and it can be a recommendation, but I just want to caution us when we're asking to put this hopefully throughout the whole Livingston range, because like I said, each community is a little bit different. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Toon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate Trustee Long's passion for this project and wanting to get other trustees involved. I do, as Trustee Yegas, think that this shouldn't be an ad hoc committee, and as we've done in the past with emergency preparedness or others, we should move this propose an amendment to move this to a standing committee. That this is something that is long-serving, that doesn't have a definitive end date like our amazing JT Foster Modernization Committee, which hopefully gets announced by the government in the near future. I think that we need to support our amazing work that's getting done at all our sites across the division, and this can help spread the awareness with trustees in our governance role.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So you would like to make an amendment that it be moved from an ad hoc committee to a standing committee? Would you consider that a friendly amendment, Trustee Long?
Not
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Can we move a committee from an ad hoc committee to a standing committee just based on an amendment to the motion, or do we need to vote on whether we're going to move that? Trustee Yeagos?
When this committee started about 2 or 3 years ago with John Taylor, in that it included with the Crow's Nest Pass, and yes, the various schools were involved. I think although the various schools, I do remember there was fundraising in that in order to pay for the things that happened out of Calgary, and that's the reason I think that everybody should know more of the history of this, even though it was brought up. I think a lot of people forget about it, what the background is. Therefore, I think there should be a presentation on the history of this so we all understand what exactly this is, because it's as I said, in order to get the people down from Calgary and that, there has to be money involved with it. And this wasn't the initiative that was started by Horace Allen and ISS. That initiative came prior to. I hate to disagree with Trustee Long, but I do, because I remember when they did the presentation, wasn't dealing with what John Taylor did. I mean, he could have been involved, but it was dealing with what had started at Horace Allen primarily, and maybe Daryl and I don't know who else would have been at that time. Maybe Daryl could agree with me when they did that, or I don't care if you agree with me or not, but could say that. But this was done by the 3 schools: Horace Allen, which then spread to ISS, which then spread to, because they do collaborate a lot. This other one came and it started as a community event, and then has presented to what Trustee Long is talking about. That's why I think we have to we have to know exactly what the history of this is, so that we know what we're doing with it. I mean, I'm not trying to say that this is a bad initiative, because it's not. It's a good initiative. But there has been fundraising involved with this, and I do know at the meetings when I started out, that's why I quit going to the meetings, because it became too much of I thought, with that part. So.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Yeagos. For clarity, are you asking to table this or making a recommendation that it moves to a later date, or are you just putting that information on the floor?
I would like to table this to the next meeting and ask John Taylor to come, because he has got all of the information on that. Although he did do this, he didn't do this as a presentation for that specifically, but what he did do this as a presentation was in part of what his duties are as working with LRSD.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation on the floor from Trustee Yeagos that we table this to the next meeting. I guess we'll take that to the board and see who would be in favor of that. Go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
I just have a comment around
Point
it.
point of order, motion to table is non-debatable. We can
Yeah.
vote on it, but we can't debate the motion to table.
Sorry, so if we're not gonna table it, then we had trustee Hodges and trustee Toon. Did you have other comments? Oh, all
Yeah,
right,
you
sorry.
still vote on the
Right,
table.
thank you. So we still have so it's a motion on the table, or, yeah, on the floor to table this until the next meeting, made by trustee Yagos, and to have a presentation from John Taylor. Okay, so,
Could I add on to that?
Yes,
And
you
after
can.
that, then we could look at the, putting this as a standing committee, because I have no problem with that either.
we'll just wait on the wording here, putting this as a standing committee. Okay, perfect. So we're going to, if there's no other discussion around this specifically, tabling it to our next meeting and having a presentation from John Taylor and look at putting this as a standing committee. I will ask, yeah, go ahead, trustee Hodges.
We don't know if John Taylor will be available or not, so asking to put it on the next meeting might not be appropriate, so we just need to look at availability.
Would you consider it a friendly amendment to put table to a future meeting?
Yeah, I don't think John Taylor would have a problem with that.
Sorry, okay. Yes, trustee Long? Thank you, trustee Yagos.
I just forwarded the overview to you, which was presented on October 1st, 2018.
Sorry, trustee Long, we're only speaking to the tabling of it. Oh, we're not speaking to it anymore. Okay. Okay, so we'll now, trustee Toon?
I'm opposed to tabling this. I think that we can have the information come forward. We can appoint members and they can sit and meet with trustee Long on the committee and they can bring that information forward. I think that the longer we wait, we don't know scheduling and what's going to come of this. I think it's a positive. All the trustees have spoken in favor that have knowledge of this and think that this is a positive initiative. I would be in favor of not tabling this and dealing with this matter today, Madam Chair.
Thank you, trustee Toon. Any other discussion around the motion? Okay, so we will now vote on the recommendation from trustee Yagos that the Board of Trustees table this to a future meeting where we can have a presentation from John Taylor and look at putting it into a standing committee. All in favor? Okay, and that was denied, defeated. It's like denied isn't right, is it? Okay, so that was defeated. Thank you. So now we're back to the original motion that was amended to say that the Board of Trustees create an additional 2 positions, 1 trustee from Ward 1 and 1 trustee from Ward 3 to sit on the Community as a Classroom, School as a Base Camp Ad Hoc Committee. And who else is here from? Mr. Perry. Oh yeah, as a standing committee. School as a base camp, so just committee. It doesn't need to say standing. Okay, standing committee. Go ahead, Mr. Perry.
So just a clarification, and maybe the board members that have been here in the past, because this position so you're excluding Ward 2 because we understand that there's a board motion that has put this in place and allowed trustee Long to be part of that. I don't think we have a record of that. So if there was a motion, and then we need to adjust our records, right? And that would be why I'm questioning trustee Long on some of the things, and he's telling me that there was a motion. So if there is a motion, we need to adjust that. If there's not a motion in the past, then you would need to include Ward 2. So that's the only reason I bring that up.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, trustee Long.
I think that's a very good idea.
Trustee Long, did you want to make an amendment to the motion, to the wording of it?
That the Board of Trustees create, pardon? Yeah, but then it would not be an additional 2 positions, and we'd have to, Nikki, take out ad hoc committee and make it a, Mr. Toon, it's called a what then? Standing committee, thank you. that the Board of Trustees create a standing committee with 3 positions, one trustee from Ward 1, one from Ward 2, and one from Ward 3, to sit on the community as a classroom, school as a base camp. Yeah, you could just take out the ad hoc committee. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Okay, we'll just give Nikki a minute to finish up that wording, and then I'll read it, and if there's any other discussion.
What if I'm not the trustee now from Ward 2?
That's too bad. So the motion reads, the motion reads that the Board of Trustees, the recommendation would be that the Board of Trustees creates a standing committee with 3 trustees, 1 trustee from Ward 1, 1 trustee from Ward 2, and 1 trustee from Ward 3 to sit on the community as a classroom, school as a base camp committee. Does that sound sufficient? Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, we will now vote on the motion that the Board of Trustees will create a standing committee with 3 trustees, 1 trustee from Ward 1, 1 trustee from Ward 2, and 1 trustee from Ward 3 to sit on the community as a classroom, school as a base camp committee, moved by trustee Stankiewicz, and all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to E5. Emergent motion brought forward by trustee Toon to approve the school assignments as follows. Would you like to speak to that, trustee Toon?
Thank you. I appreciate the board putting this on. I know we didn't get to the full discussion at our committee of the whole today, but I feel that it's important with all our school councils coming quickly and for trustees to have the ability to make sure we have those vital meetings covered with representation that we do our assignments. The discussion for, I can just speak about Ward 1, that trustee Stankiewicz would cover the 2 Nanton schools, JT Foster and AB Daly. That trustee Gimber would cover Stavely Elementary and West Meadow, and trustee Toon would cover WCCHS and Granham School. And if the other trustees would like to share what ones they've selected in each ward.
Thank you, trustee Toon. We'll just give Nikki a moment to bring this up. Trustee Hodges, did you want to speak to the schools in your ward?
Sure. Ward 3 with trustee Poitras and myself, we have Pincher Creek. We have 2 schools there and then 2 schools also in Fort McLeod. So Fort McLeod, FP Walsh and WA Day. And then we have Canyon and Matthew Halton in Pincher Creek. I've had the opportunity to go to all 3 schools except for WA Day, sitting on their parent school council. So I'd like the opportunity to possibly sit on the WA Day school council. And so I'd also be willing to, I don't know if you've sat on FP Walsh's school council or not, but we could divide that up between doing a high school in Pincher Creek and a high school in an elementary in Fort McLeod. So I'm willing to split that up.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, yeah, and they're well aware as well. So we'll just go through the list and add them here.
No, I want WA Day. WA Day, and then I can do Matthew Halton.
Okay, perfect.
Crowsnest Pass, and then, and Ward, whatever, Ward 2? Yeah, okay, and
So we'll just go through the wards here. So Clare's Home Elementary is going to be trustee Toon. Okay. Oh,
No, that's trustee Gimber. I would
Okay.
be the high school in Claresholm,
okay,
WCCHS, and Granham.
okay. So the next 2 are Toon and Toon. And then Lumbrick will be
I'll do Lumberg again, and I'll do
Isabel Solon.
Isabel Sellen, and Greg said he'll do the other two, Horace Allen, and then we each get a high school and an elementary.
Excellent. And we will be going, yeah, Hodges, Poitras, Hodges, Poitras. Nope, sorry, Poitras. Yeah, Poitras, and then Hodges. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So the motion is on the floor that, or the recommendation is on the floor, kind of. We didn't really write out a whole one, so Trustee Toon is making the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the school assignments as presented. Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
I just want to make sure that we now have our school assignments, and is it our responsibility as the assigned to those schools to reach out to the principal or the school council chairs and let them know who their assignments are with?
Yeah, so as the trustee assigned to a school, you can send a email to the principal of that school letting them know, and the school council chair. If you don't have that information, you can get it from the principal, and if they don't have a school council, they may just have, they may be working on it still. So you can reach out to the principal and let him know that you will be attending the school councils, and get the chair's information to let them know as well. And if it's a new chair, you may want to let them know that we often give 3 key messages when we attend the meetings. So thank you for that, Trustee Hodges. If there's no further discussion, okay. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to, that was carried. Move on to E6. This is also moved by Trustee Toon, that the board approve supporting trustees in running for the following ASBA positions, or ASBA positions as follows. Trustee Toon, did you want to begin the conversation around this? And is the wording on that okay, or are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that if there's any other suggested wording on that. I know that usually we have a discussion at committee of the whole, but again, we didn't, so I apologize for that. Just wanted to make sure that we supported trustees that are running for these positions. The position that I would be asking for approval for would be Vice President of ASBA. I currently sit on the Board of Directors, and I have 1 more year in my term, but due to the elections and trustee turnover, there's a large number of vacancies. There's only about 4 of us that will be remaining. And so I've been asked by other trustees to consider running for that position to help the leadership role in that organization. So I would ask to put my name forward for that.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Is there any discussion around Trustee Toon putting his name forward for ASBA Vice President? Trustee Toon?
Just with that, if that I'm successful in that, we would need a vacancy filled at our Board 6, and just to help facilitate if that happens, I think that it's prudent that we have anyone interested in that position put their name forward. And I don't want to speak for, but I know our Trustee Hodges has done an amazing job as our zone chair, and I would ask her to consider putting her name forward for that director position.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Trustee Toon. Of course, we can't make anyone put their name forward for anyone, but Trustee Hodges, did you want to speak to that? And
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Toon. As I'm no longer able to be Zone 6 chair, my term has ended for being able to do that. I would like the opportunity, if Trustee Toon is successful in becoming ASBA's vice president, his term will be vacant. So I would like the board's permission then to run as for board of director. Thank you.
Is that position officially ASBA's Zone 6 Board of Director?
Yeah.
Is what that would be, Nikki. And thank you both, that's very exciting. Is there anyone else who is hoping to put their name forward for anything to do with ASBA?
I'm sorry, is this for the Zone 6 positions too?
Yes,
And they're-
also for Zone 6 positions.
No, this is just for the
Oh.
ASBA vice president and ASBA Zone 6 board of directors because it steps outside of the board's role. And so we're just asking permission to do these two things. The Zone 6 is the whole board's invited to, so that's separate. on
Okay,
that.
I was just wondering if this included Zone 6 or just was the provincial ASBA.
Just the provincial
Thank you.
ASBA, thank you.
Thank you for that clarity. I also was thinking it was for both, so thank you so much for that clarity. Trustee Hodges, go ahead, Trustee Boyd.
Yeah,
I'm Poitras.
since we passed the motion in previous term, anything that is one board, one vote, so if your intent is to run to SAPDC or anything of that nature, any of the other positions, you have to get board approval before the meeting. So we didn't want to have to call a special meeting. So if there is other interest from members to go to those positions, they need to seek that at this time. And just thinking there, would be an amendment I would ask to make that the board approve the trustees running and allowed the advocacy committee to work in supporting those trustees. I think it's important that when we send make these positional announcements, traditionally the board, once they give that support, they write a letter to board chairs and things of that nature, and that's something that I've been working on drafting on, but I'd appreciate it in doing so that this motion that it would allow the advocacy committee to help in sending out that information for myself as well as any other positions that board members are seeking.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. And allow that the advocacy committee to support them in the writing of letters?
In doing so, I don't know if like writing letters, because there might be more involved or something involved, because I know when, especially with the executive level positions, that usually boards meet, and I want to be able to give our advocacy committee permission to meet and discuss supports for
Would
that.
that be committee to support them in their campaigning efforts?
What I'm agreeable to whatever
I know.
wording is recommended by the board.
Does anyone have anything that they feel more comfortable with, or Trustee Yegas?
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to understand what Trustee Toon is saying. So what we're doing is we're giving you permission to run for these because I know in the past we've said you have to get this permission because it is taking a time away from the board when you run for these positions. It doesn't, from what I gather, that doesn't mean, not that I'm being personal about this, but I'm saying this in a generalized sense. That doesn't really mean we're supporting your candidacy. It means that we're just saying that you may run, that, we understand that this could be, and then that's what I understood from this. So by asking the advocacy, I mean, shouldn't it be up to you as a candidate to write it? As I'm just confused on that part.
At every, sorry, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
go ahead, Trustee Toon.
At every other FGM, we've got letters from boards supporting the candidacy of their individual. It doesn't necessarily mean that their board is the mover or seconder of that, but I think it's key. I agree with Trustee Yegas. Those are two distinctions, but I would like to encompass that in the motion. And if you want a separate motion to separate that out from board of directors, from Trustee Hodges or whatever have you, I think it's key to have that support, like you say, so there's an understanding that the board supports this going forward. I've already gotten inquiries from others when if I was approved at the meeting today, when our letter would be coming out from our board chair. And so that would be the ask that I would have and I don't want to just assign it to the board chair. I think like traditionally we have the advocacy committee work and draft those things. And I've worked on some stuff already, just to be open about that. So the majority of it's done, but board support, you can't run for a position in an executive of a provincial organization without board support. It just can't happen.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So Trustee Toon mentioned that if the board would feel more comfortable, this could be two separate motions. Is there any thought on making the advocacy support portion of the motion a separate motion? Or, okay, I'm seeing no conversation around that, so we'll leave it as is. At this time, we could potentially discuss the ASBA positions that are being run for at the zone level, as that meeting is happening on November 4th, and we would need, trustees need permission to run for those from the board. So given the time, we could do that now. Would we need to make an amendment for this to say that the Board of Trustees approves supporting trustees in running for ASBA positions both locally, okay, ASBA positions and Zone 6, and ASBA Zone 6 positions as follows. Okay, thank you. So Clara, or Trustee Gallegos, sorry about that.
I think we should vote on this one and then go on to Zone 6 and vote on that, because they really are two, you know, I mean, I know the position of Vice President, if Trustee Toon gets it, is going to, it's going to be intensive, let's put it that way. I mean, they do a lot of things, so, and if Trustee Hodges, keeping in mind is that she's, you know, there's going to be other people involved in that. I mean, that's usually a pretty interesting area that other boards want to run. But yeah, I think we should vote on that.
Thank you, Trustee Yegas. So we have E6 is that Trustee Toon is making the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve supporting trustees in running for the following ASBA positions as follows. 1, ASBA Vice President, Brad Toon, and 2, ASBA Zone 6 Board of Director, Trustee Hodges. Is there anyone else hoping to put their name forward? I'm seeing none. Any further discussion on these? Seeing none. And it also reads, and allow the advocacy committee to support them. Sorry, I didn't mean to not read the rest of that. So with no further discussion, I will call the question. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Trustee Yegas.
I just, in order the advocacy to support them, I think it should read and allow, and not allow, and the advocacy committee write a letter to the other boards in support of these.
And direct.
But we got to be careful, because for Trustee Toon, they'll be writing a letter to every 61 boards in the province. For Trustee Hodges, they'll be only writing for the Zone 6 boards.
So would allow and direct the advocacy committee to support, to write letters of support?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Toon? Oh, okay. Sorry. He was working on wording too. Sorry about that, Trustee Toon. So the motion now reads that the Board of Trustees approve supporting trustees in running for ASBA positions as follows. Position 1, ASBA Vice President, Trustee Toon. Position 2, ASBA Zone 6 Chair, Board of Directors, sorry, Trustee Hodges, and direct the Advocacy Committee to write letters of support. Perfect. If there's no further conversation, all in favor of supporting these two? That's carried. And may I just say, it's so exciting to be on a board that is so involved, and it's a big deal to put your name forward for these things. So congratulations to both of you, and best of luck. Okay, so from this we will add E6, which will be a recommendation coming forward. Is there someone who would like to make the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve supporting trustees in running for ASBA Zone 6 positions as follows? Is there someone who'd like to make that motion?
I can.
Trustee Hodges, thank you. And did you want to speak to that, Trustee Hodges?
Sure. I think that making the motion just state that if approving trustees that feel they want to running any positions for the Zone 6 right now, as we don't have a list of the committees in front of us. So I think if we keep the motion as presented right now, I think it's very, I think it's prudent to keep it that way right now, because nobody's had time to look at all the things sent out from Zone 6 yet. So if you feel like you're going to be maybe running for a position at the Zone 6 level, just put your name down. Doesn't mean you absolutely have to, but then it gives you, the board, permission to support you. Thank you.
That was me. I hit the pink instead of the blue. Sorry about that. Thank you for that recommendation. So the recommendation from Trustee Hodges, who moves that the Board of Trustees approve supporting the following trustees in running for positions.
Madam Chair, we should just put not approve the following, but just approve trustees for running for positions within the Zone 6 ASBA.
Would you consider that a friendly amendment? You are the one who made that.
Yes, because I actually thought that's what we were doing.
Yes, that's
so.
what I thought it was up to. Okay, thank you. So
Sorry, Nikki.
Trustee Toon will be right. You can speak. Let's just let the wording happen here. So Trustee Hodges, does that look like what you wanted to say?
No, I think we were just going to say that the Board of Trustees approve trustees in running for a Zone 6 ASBA position and take out support. Yeah, the following. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nikki, and thank you, Trustee Hodges and Trustee Gallegos. Trustee Toon?
Thank you. Appreciate the motion. My one concern is the reason why we have these motions in general was to assure that there wasn't multiple people running for the same position, because you could show up to the board, to the ASBA general meeting, and it's one board, one vote, and you could have one trustee deciding between two of their colleagues who they're going to support and vote for. So I do support anyone being supported and running for anything, but I just caution in having it completely open because of the conflict that it could create come meeting. So I would just ask that we if it takes at the end of the meeting or whatever, we just populate the names of who's interested in running. I know it's hard for new trustees to know the role, but we can inform them of what those other committees are, because there's not that many. There's only like 2 or 3, but I'm assuming that we're going to have the amazing Trustee Long put his name forward again for labor rep, because we need that experience there, and we want to ensure that we get everybody's name in there recorded before the meetings.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Any more conversation around that?
So I would propose, Madam Chair, that we table the motion to the end of the meeting, and then after we do in camera or whatever, or we have a break, we can just inform Nikki of the names there and come back to this at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So we'll table this till the end of the meeting when we've met in camera and can discuss it a little further. And also we're going to have an update on the ASBA upcoming meeting as well. So perfect. We'll move on to discussion information items. F1, enrollment update. So Jeff Perry, Associate Superintendent of Business Services, will review the official September 30th, 2021 enrollment figures. Mr. Perry?
Nikki, can you bring that up on the screen? So this was a document that was included in your agendas, and so you've had opportunity to have a look at it. You might want to make it a little bigger. I can see it, but Chad can't. Okay, so this is the document, and for those trustees that are new, this document was much simpler before COVID. COVID has created so many different ways of how we provide instruction to our students, whether it be at home, whether it be online. Some of those things we're already doing, but the numbers have increased significantly in some of those areas based on COVID. And so in an effort to try and make this as simple as possible, but yet provide as much information as possible so that the board has an understanding of how we're educating our students and where we've put this document together. I provided this document in our September meeting as an update. I cautioned everyone that there was numbers that needed to be vetted and so forth. And so we've gone through all the numbers on this document in great detail, and I sat down with the principal of our outdoor programming, our online virtual school in Tara Tanner, sat down with Chad Cusick, and also our SIS coordinator, Melanie Housengay, and went through this in great detail. So these numbers are the numbers as of September 30th. And so what this document does is it identifies on the left side the school in the next column where it says regular projected. That's what we anticipated in the spring and in preparation for our budget. And so those numbers, we typically included that the majority, because there was so much uncertainty, we included that the majority of students would be back in school. And even though many were taking at home learning. And so that is the number that the schools looked at and provided to us. Some were a little more conservative, some were a little more optimistic, and that is kind of identified in the document. The next column over says regular actual. This is how many students are actually in the school. So the difference is right beside that. So you can look at AB Daily. AB Daily is 5 individual students up above what they projected. JT Foster is down. And between 5 and 6 students, that's a pretty small variance. That can mean one family moving in or out or a couple. And so that's not a significant amount. If you move over to the right again, that was the regular prior year and the at-home students at home learning for the year. And then the difference is the actual versus those two together. And so we're actually up 22 and a half students from the prior year, regardless of the way that they took education. Now, this does not include home education. That's at the bottom. This is at-home learning and in classroom regular students. So the school's up 22 and a half and JT Foster is down 10. So the community together, so we amalgamate that information together. So the community is down 1 at school from projections and actually up 12 and a half from the prior year, if that makes sense. So some of those may have came from home school, but that is the numbers. So Stavely is on its own, obviously. So they're actually up 4 and a half from projection and up 4 and a half from the prior year. So their projection was similar to what they actually had last year. Clara's home, West Meadow, and Willow Creek actually experienced increase in growth. And I do have a few numbers here for those numbers that are more significant. West Meadow indicated that, so West Meadow is up 29 from projections, up 14 from the prior year. 29, in talking with the administrator, he was quite conservative. ECS is always a challenging group to project as far as how many students they might have. So one of the reasons they're higher is that they have more ECS. Other information that was provided by the administrator is that they had 10 students come from move-ins to the community. They also had 5 students that came from immigration. And so Clara's Home has an immigration initiative going on, and so there's more students moving, or more people moving to that community for that reason. And so that would equate to why they have more additional students. This does not include international students either. That's at the bottom as well. So Clara's Home has quite a few international students as well at their school. Okay, so Granham is actually down 9.5 from what they projected, but only down 6.5 from what they had in the prior year, and that's definitely because of a couple of families moving out, and in a small school that can make a significant difference for them. In addition, throughout, some of the rationale is for all the schools is that some of the students had options to take the virtual school, and some of them moved to the virtual school as well. So Fort McLeod is down 20 overall, only 2 down in WA Day from projections, and they're actually up 13 from the prior year. FP Walsh is down from the prior year by 13 and down from projections 18. FP Walsh and Matthew Halton are actually significantly challenging schools to estimate or project. We have students that come from the reserves, off reserves, and so forth. And there's some volatility in whether they attend year to year. And so the response from the administrator there is that it was just really challenging to estimate or project. And this is his second full year, I think, at that school. And so his response was conservative budgeting, or maybe not so conservative budgeting, and it ended up that those students didn't come. So Pincher Creek actually had some growth as well, so 14 up from projection, 18 up from the prior year. Many of those are just from students moving in. They actually felt that they would have more, but some students went to online virtual school as well. So an increase there. Again, some was from ECS for the elementary school as well. Livingston is up 8, and from projections, and up 7 from the prior year. Quite often that is due to students wanting to come to the ski academy and potentially leaving Pincher Creek or even Crow's Nest Pass to do so. So good news for Lundbrick. If we move down just a little bit, Nikki, the Crow's Nest Pass, this is where we had significant number differences. And each of those schools were down almost 20 students from projections, and not so much from what it was in the prior year. Horace Allen, one of the things we had out in Horace Allen ISS, we also had a new school move into the area. So the French immersion school that was initiated in this current year took students from both Horace Allen, 5 from there, and 1 from ISS. So 4 elementary students, or sorry, 6, I can't do that. That's not good if the financial guy can't add. I need a calculator, but 6 students moved from those schools to the French immersion. Horace Allen had 8 students move, 4 went to Livingston and some went to online. ISS, 6 families moved, so that could be more than 6 students. 3 went to the ski academy, 1 went to French, and 3 went to online. And Crow's Nest Consolidated, for the most part, was the online initiative, is what they estimated the majority of their numbers went to. So when we look at outreach schools, we're up 7, down 15 from projection, but down 15 from prior year, up 7 from projections. Colony schools were actually down 10 students from projection, down 12 from the prior year. They're actually accessing the virtual school. So we had some high school students that are now potentially accessing the virtual school in that area. So when you look at it, just the schools, so the actual physical schools that we have, the FTE projected was 34,116, and our actual numbers are 3386. So we're down 30 from what we projected, which is not too bad. When you look from the prior year, we're actually up 13.5 from the prior year, and we haven't counted everything underneath that. So that's actually a good news story. So if we look at below, we look at the other areas that we provide education. Home education. So when you think of a home education student, and we think of FTE, so full-time equivalent, they're only considered 0.25. So that's why you'll see odd numbers here. And then I've given that information down below. So as an FTE, home education, we projected 15.5, we're at 11.5, we're down 4. But we have home education shared responsibility where we're sharing that responsibility with the school and home education. So there's 5.5 there. So we're actually up 1.5, and we're down about 9 from the prior year. So, but when you look at virtual school, we actually only had 7 registered in the prior year because all the other ones were considered at home learning. But now we have significantly more. So we have 29 in grades 1 to 7, 24 in 8 to 9, 10 to 12. We have 40 students. So we still have a significant number in the virtual school, and yet we're close to what we had last year for schools above. We also have 21 students in virtual school from outside of the jurisdiction. So that's new to us as well. And then when you look at international students, we had recorded on the books last year was 10. We actually have 47 this year, which is an increase of 37 from projection and 42 from the last year. So in total, our FTE increase from projections is 115.5, but our increase from prior year is 156.75 FTE. So ECS are 0.5, homeschooler 0.25. When you equate that to an FTE in total, it's 156.75, which is really good actually for our jurisdiction. Just additional information at the bottom. Total head count, so projected was 302. We actually have head count, we actually have 3,763 students in some way, shape, or form taking education from us. That's an increase of 161. That's a head count, so that doesn't consider FTE. And from the prior year, we're up 149. So that's great. Home education students, we budgeted for 62. We actually have 68. Last year we had 107, and that was due to COVID for the most part. So that went down a little bit. Students with virtual school concurrent enrollment, we have 139 students within our jurisdiction that are likely associated with a school but are taking a course at the virtual school, or vice versa. They're considered a virtual school and taking one course at the high school. So we're sharing them. Something new, preschool students. We actually have 83 preschool students in 3 sites in the Livingston Range School Division. Sorry, that was a lot of information, but if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Trustee Hodges?
It's really exciting to see that our numbers are going up. I just have a question around the virtual school. Are we funded the same for virtual school students compared to the bums in the seats?
So no, we're not. Virtual school is not funded the same way as if you're attending a high school. So it really depends on the number of credits that students are taking. So if they take 35 or more credits, then we get full funding for them. If not, then it's a reduced amount for the virtual school.
Thank you. Go ahead, Trustee.
Thank you. Just one more question around the virtual school. That's really exciting to see out of our division students taking our virtual school. It'd be really interesting to track that a little bit and see where they came from and why they chose to come here, and just maybe some data on that. So that's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's certainly information we can get. Tara Tanner has that. I don't have it here, but we could bring that information at another date.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Perry.
Mr. Seguin.
I was like, do we call him Mr. Seguin or
Yes,
Superintendent?
sure.
Okay. Mr. Seguin.
Let me just see. Tara did send information to us about a breakdown of the virtual school enrollment, and so just so you're aware, we've got students from Lethbridge, Red Deer, Westwind, Golden Hills, Calgary, Palliser school divisions. So it's kind of spread out around there. Most students coming to us from almost half of our virtual students that are outside of our jurisdiction are coming from Calgary, and then about a third of them from Westwind. When I spoke with Michelle a few minutes ago on our break, she mentioned that as she's gathering information from the students that are attending from outside, she's asking, why did you select LRSD's virtual school? And many of them are finding us through the internet search. So that's good information to know. Others are hearing from, somebody that either a relative or a friend, and many of them expressed to her that they really liked the course offerings that were available to us and the personal touch of our teachers compared to other virtual schools. So that's really good feedback for us that will continue to build our program and sets us apart maybe from other virtual type schools. So hopefully that helps you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Seguin. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, well, thank you for that, Mr. Perry. And now we'll move on to Mr. Perry with the Remuneration Audit Committee audited financial statements. Jeff Perry, the Associate Superintendent of Business Services, will provide a brief overview to the Board of Trustees regarding the upcoming audit of the division's financial statements and the role of the Audit Committee. turn that over to you, Mr. Perry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I will try and make it brief. I did take 3 pages worth of notes, though, so we'll see how quickly I can get through. Actually, all the responsibility for, I mean, you had an orientation yesterday, and the facilitator there spoke of the financial and fiscal responsibility of the board, and overall you have that responsibility. It comes from the Education Act, so I thought I'd take you through a journey with the Education Act and give you some information as to what it says in there. I know you all have a copy of the Education Act now, and you have it beside your bed and you're reading it at night, right? But I'll take you through these sections that apply to the fiscal responsibility of the board. So it really comprises a few sections, sections 138 to 143. So the board shall appoint an auditor. And this is typically done through the Audit Committee. So the Audit Committee will review and go through a process. And our Audit Committee did. The previous board, I think it was our Audit Committee, or did we have one at that point? Doesn't matter. The board went through a tender process and accepted proposals from the various audit firms. A detailed review of the proposals was conducted. A 5-year term was requested. It's a lot of work to change auditors every other year. And so we looked at a 5-year term, and a recommendation was made to the board to appoint KPMG as our auditors. And so we're into the 2nd year out of a 5-year term with KPMG. So the board has fulfilled this responsibility. They've appointed KPMG for the next 5 years for the audit, and then we would likely, near the end of that term, go through another process that way. So Section 139, financial reporting to the minister. The fiscal year of the board is September 1st to August 31st, unless otherwise directed by the minister. So our year end begins, so we start working on the financial statements at the end of August, once we know the actual results. But the board each year shall provide on or before May 31st. I'm just going to cut this down a little bit, a budget to the minister. So the budget process, which we'll go through a little bit more later, is typically from January to the end of May, where you would approve a budget to be sent to the Minister of Education. The financial statements are due by November 30th. So the financial statements is something that we put together as management, and an auditor comes and does an audit on the financial statements. The Audit Committee will review with the auditor the financial statements that have been audited, the auditor's opinion, and make a recommendation to the board to approve the audited financial statements based on their review with the auditor. So that's one of the ways that this board accomplishes their financial or fiscal responsibility, is through that Audit Committee and the auditor. In addition to that, the Audit Committee has 3 times a year where they will perform a quarterly report, and a summary of that report will come to this board as well. And so a summary of the financial position, major changes, trends, and things of that nature that we learn from the review will be brought to this board, so that you have the ability to understand where we sit and ask questions to the representatives that sit on the Audit Committee. Okay. I'm going to skip some of this. The auditors perform their audit in accordance with Canadian auditing standards, perform the auditor's examination of and prepare the auditor's report on the financial statements prepared pursuant to this act, and submit to the board the report to the board. They also request that the auditors provide an opinion, and any communication that is brought between the auditors and the board has to be submitted to Alberta Education, so they have an understanding. So that's typically what's called a management letter. So the auditors will look at after the audit, they'll put a document together as to their findings and any suggestions of improvement with regards to internal controls or anything of that nature will be brought to the board as well. You'll be able to see that, as well as it'll be submitted to Alberta Education. The Audit Committee is actually something that through the Education Act, the board has to establish. So it used to be voluntary, but it is now a responsibility of the board to establish an audit committee. They recommend external auditors, they review the audited financial statements, and attend to other matters as the board may determine in the establishment of the audit committee. And so this board has determined that they'll do an annual review of the remuneration and recommendation to the board, and the quarterly reporting, which I mentioned. The audit committee shall be comprised of 5 individuals, which is 3 trustees and 2 members from the public. And the 2 members from the public is actually a requirement in the Education Act. So that audit committee membership was influenced by that. I think that's where I'll end as far as that part. It did talk about remuneration a little bit. I'll just say 1 or 2 things on that. Remuneration is governed by Policy 8, so if you want a clearer understanding of how board members are remunerated after your discussion today on approval of changes to the remuneration process, you can read Board Policy 8, and of course that'll have to be changed based on the motion that was passed today. So that was just happened. Remuneration as per Policy 8 is reviewed annually, and that's per Policy 8. Section or clause 8, 6.3, and that's where the responsibility is given to the audit committee. There are 2 components. There's the monthly and the per diem, as you've noted. Monthly covers items that are in Policy 8, as well as per diem covers the items that are mentioned in Policy 8 as well. At the end of this meeting, if we have time and if anyone has energy still, we have revised the claim form for trustees to make it simpler, and so we'll go through that real quick so you have an idea as to how to submit your monthly claim form for the meetings that you attend. And it must be submitted, and I'll tell you the date at a later time. I can't remember because I have to talk to the payroll people, but typically you'll be paid by the 5th day of the following month. So I think if you have it in by the last day of the month, you'll be paid by the 5th day of the following month. If you anticipate that there's no meetings in the last couple of days, you can send it in earlier and it'll be processed. Not quicker, but it'll help our payroll people. So, yeah, with that, I think that's the majority of the information. I think it's information overload today. So, but if there is any questions, Trustee Poitras.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Perry on that? It's a lot, I know. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Perry. We'll move on to F3, Alberta School Board Association. Trustee Hodges will give an update on and provide information regarding the upcoming ASBA zone and fall general meeting. Trustee Hodges?
Thank you. Registration for the 2021 FGM is officially open. All attendees are required to register in advance. For this year's FGM, ASBA will cover approximately 50% of the cost of registration per person. The reduced registration fee for this year is $375 plus GST per person, regardless of attending virtually or in person. Additionally, this registration fee includes access to all activities over the 3D event and a flat fee regardless of the number of days participants attend. Registration for this event will close Friday, November 5th at noon. The 3-day event includes the award celebration on the Sunday, November 14th, the business session and gala on Monday, November 15th, and the MLA gathering and breakfast and professional development sessions on Tuesday, November 16th. For details on this event, you can visit the website. Attached to this email is the bulletin used for the business section, which everybody should look over who's attending this. It's the bylaws and policies that as a board we will be voting on the floor, and so we should be looking at these, and if we have the time, the potential to discuss them. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any questions for Trustee Hodges? No? Go ahead.
As chair, maybe you'll have to be able to forward it to Carla and Jocelyn, so that if they choose to join you can look at the full motions, or not motions, email.
Perfect. So I just sent that to both of you. And just so you're aware as new trustees that Nikki has gone ahead and booked hotel rooms for us. If this is not something that you can attend in person and would like to do virtually, then you can just let Nikki know and that room can be canceled. Also, when you register for ASBA events, there's no fee that will show up on there. You register and it will be sent to the board. Go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
This is also where we'll be electing our president and vice president at this FGM too, so it's a really great opportunity to meet other trustees and have some really good PD too.
Thank you so much. Any questions or discussions at this time? Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, F4 and F5 were added to the consent agenda, so we'll move on to F6, the admin procedure update. Daryl Sequin, our superintendent, will review proposed changes to admin procedure 100 and 102 and 210 with the Board of Trustees. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Sequin.
Thank you. Probably in the interest of time, I'm going to provide just a quick summary. So yesterday in our board orientation, our facilitator reminded us that the Board of Trustees develops board policies to help govern or guide the school division, and administration develops administrative procedures to get into a little bit more detail. And so just like the board reviews their policies from time to time and makes the necessary adjustments, we do that with senior admin, and at times, depending on the changes that need to be made, call in a group of principals or even vice principals to be part of that discussion. And we usually have a trustee representative there in those admin procedure working committees as well. Sometimes the changes are more minor and more of a formality and don't require the committee to meet. And so that's the case with these ones here. Admin procedure 100 and 102 are really just reflecting the move recently in Alberta education from the accountability framework to an assurance framework. And so with that, there are some new timelines as the education plan is now submitted to Alberta Education at the end of May each year, whereas the annual education results report is submitted separately and at the end of November. So the changes basically that are captured in 100 and 102 are just reflecting that change to the assurance framework. So, the last procedure, 210, was something that our Learning Services Department put forward, some changes. And as you know, there's more emphasis on inclusion nowadays. And so our Director of Learning, Lisa Furukawa, mentioned that the language in 210 has been updated to be more inclusive and in alignment with Alberta Education's current language. Background and definitions are more concise and inclusive, and the guidelines are reworded to be more inclusive. And she's also updated the Early Childhood Services Regulation from 2002, I think it was on there, to the document that was developed in 2019. So basically, that's a quick summary. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them, but they're more minor changes, I would say. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Seguin. Do we have any questions? Not at this time. Seeing none. Thank you so much for that presentation on those policies and those minor changes. We will now move to F7, which was brought forward by Trustee Yagos. She wanted to have the superintendent monthly report pulled out. And I will turn it over to Trustee Yagos. If you just want to give Nikki a minute, she can pull that up on the screen for us.
My question was on the the second one you said, the board draft curriculum meeting. I would like to know more, I think, on this. We haven't really heard what's going on with the curriculum other than what the media is reporting. So I was just wondering where we're at with the division in terms of the curricula and what's happening with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's a big question. And it's on the minds of many across the province for sure. So
Trustee Hodges and Toon had different meetings, and they might be interested in speaking to this, as well as Trustee Poitras. And so from the various meetings at the zone and provincial level, there was some additional funding that was being provided to school divisions to gather more feedback and more specific feedback, I guess. And so then there's a timeline that's been set with various meetings and that will occur. And so the three trustees met with Mr. Cusick and I to talk a little bit about what that means for us in our division. How can we get more specific feedback from our teachers? And so Mr. Cusick meets regularly with our literacy committee and our numeracy committee. And so he also sits on a zone curriculum committee as well through CAS. And so we were just kind of coordinating our processes and to be able to make sure that we had kind of an alignment of what sort of information that we were discussing and providing to Alberta education. So maybe I will leave it at that, and if the other trustees or Mr. Cusick want to add something, or if you have any specific questions, maybe now I'll turn it back to the chair, but that's kind of what it was. It was an overview and a touch point to say, hey, there's extra dollars provided. We want more specific feedback. This is Alberta Ed wants more specific feedback as to issues or problems that we would have with the curriculum. And so how can we coordinate our efforts to get that feedback to them?
Thank you, Mr. Seguin. So there are meetings happening that have been called by ASBA to have the zone chairs, and because we're a very involved board, Brad was there as a director and a facilitator. Lori attended as Zone 6 chair, and then as the vice chair, I was able to attend as well. So do either of you want to give an overview on what this is, or do you want me to speak to it? Why don't you go ahead? Either of you.
I don't have my notes here with me, but we were just placed in facilitated groups where we had a facilitator asking specific questions, and we were, all the schools were there. It was a hybrid meeting, so we had not very many in person. So our small group, but we had great conversation around the curriculum. The CAS presented a presentation on what their role will be in moving forward with the curriculum. And we had a presentation from the Alberta government too. Right now, we're just trying to get as much information as we can from our parents, from our staff, from anybody. We're still trying to petition the government to do a staggered entry with the curriculum. And we're just trying to provide as much input as we can through ASBA. We're given the grant to facilitate this through school boards. And so, and CAS also had received the grant. So they're looking at it more operational for CAS, would you say, on theirs for like working with the government that way, and then school boards are working more with school boards. So we had great conversations. A lot of input was shared and gathered, and from my understanding, it'll be shared back out to the zone chairs and the board chairs when it's available. So I don't know if there's anything else that Brad or Lacey want to add.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Toon, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, just because I've had a headache ever since that meeting, but that's a different occurring event. No, appreciate Trustee Poitras and Trustee Hodges for their involvement in this. Like they said, I helped facilitate one of the groups, and this is the $75,000 grant from the government. So there's going to be multiple meetings upcoming, and we'll have an opportunity to share in camera with trustees what the results were, those meetings were. I apologize for not having the opportunity to do that yet, because because the grant can't be made public till the government gives permission. The results of the report from the grant, this all has to be fed back to the board through in camera due to confidentiality. So really excited for the ability to help shape and make this the best curriculum, most modern, up-to-date curriculum that we can for our students, and give meaningful input. So I think it's going to be great for us to do it.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Yeah. Trustee Yagos?
I was just going to say, I really thank you for that information. I hope going forward that we have the curriculum on here so that we all understand what is going, because this is a major, a major thing that's happening. And I think as a board, we all need to be informed about it. So I know some of this might have to be in camera, but on the other hand, we need to.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to add to that working together with our superintendents has been invaluable, and then bringing everyone together and sharing what is happening in the division is going to be a huge benefit, so that when it's taken back to the government, they're looking for specific things. There's going to be a lot of them that are highlighted by multiple boards, and then also multiple different superintendents. So it's exciting. Mr. Cusack?
Because I have curriculum in my title, I better speak to this. I want to make sure everyone is aware of what we're doing as a board and the public, as this is recorded. So, first of all, divisionally, we do work with the literacy and numeracy committees to unpack some of the curriculum, look at how that extends throughout the curriculum and what it looks like. So we've been working with that even probably since last year, kind of poking around. And then they're going to be invited to a collaborative event that's going to take place in Lethbridge, potentially COVID permitting. It might be virtual. Just to unpack it with other people, so to create a network of curriculum leaders across our division and other divisions, so we get to actually play with it. We can talk about the how and the why, but it's the what. We want to see what we can do with these lesson plans and start to build things. So we'll start that process soon here. The curriculum work that we're doing with the CAS, which you spoke of right now, is opportunity for our staff to give their thoughts on the curriculum. So we put that out to staff members, principals first, and then we submitted that to CAS just for feedback. So, and through that, they'll, as we heard what Trustee Poitras had mentioned, that information will be provided to the government, and the government's looking for specifics. So we at Livingston Range and myself looked at the phys ed specifically curriculum and provided that feedback to CAS. So that was our commitment to the CAS project. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Trustee Yagos, was there anything else you wanted to discuss in the Superintendent Monthly?
No, that was the primary one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing that to the attention of the board. It's a great discussion to get started. Perfect. Okay, with that brings that brings us to our key messages. At the end of every meeting, just for the new trustees, at the end of every meeting, we discuss choosing 3 and almost always end up with 4 key messages, 4 or 5, that are from today's meeting that we will share as we go out to school councils in the next month. It can be anything that we've discussed today that is exciting, from celebrations to enrollment, and we bring it to the board. So I'll open up the conversation now. We'll start with Trustee Long. Do you have something you'd like to add to the 3 key messages?
Perhaps the one about the community as a classroom, school as a base camp, that we're going to have a trustee from each ward on that committee, and maybe a brief statement about what that committee does. And I sent you each of you our opening document, or what we hoped to attain. So that'd be one.
Trustee Hodges?
I'd like to share our enrollment.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Does anyone else have a third they'd like to? Trustee Toon?
I'm
We'll
sorry.
go, that's
Trustee
okay. We'll
Toon.
go to Trustee
Okay.
Toon, and then we'll come to Trustee Yagos.
I'd like to share our school assignments and our new chair and vice chair positions.
Thank you. Trustee Yagos?
Basically, that was what I was going to
Okay.
say.
Oh. Trustee Gimber, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to share or put as our key messages? We got 4, so that's Impressive enough. Okay, perfect. So, Trustee Long?
I would like to go public with a thank you to our executive secretary, Nikki, who always has these out. I don't know how she does it. I quite often have school council tonight, and I'm always writing up my own notes. And before I start my meeting, Nikki has the messages out to me, and I do want to make that public because it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Long, and thank you, Nikki, for all that you do. Okay, so now at 5:08, is there a trustee that would like to make a motion that the board, okay, so Trustee Stankiewicz would like to make a motion that the Board of Trustees go in camera at 5:08. All in favor? Perfect, thank you. We'll